we say hello to legendary sports talk radio host, the host of the Oh the Pain podcast. It's our guy, Joe Benigno. Joe, how we feeling as the Jet offseason is fully underway?
Jake, how are you? Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mean, I got to tell you, outside of the losing Nick Folk, which I didn't understand, I'm down with everything Darren Mucci has done. I got to tell you, everything he's done. We can start with franchising Breece Hall. I think Breece had to come back. I'd like to see them give him a long-term contract. We'll see if they do that or not. But at least we know we have him for another year. I like the trade he made with Jermaine Johnson, who I thought was an absolute stiff, and he was always hurt. And you got this guy Sweat to be a nose tackle in the middle of the defensive line. Johnson goes back to Salah in Tennessee. He really addressed, as we saw, the defense with all the different moves. The defense was not a professional defense last year. And we saw all the moves that he made the other day, starting with Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joseph Asai, really addressed the defensive line. He brings back the Mario Davis, even though he's 37 years old. The Mario Davis moves reminds me a lot of Bart Scott when Rex Ryan brought him in back in 2009 when he was waiting at his house to sign him. Because to me, DeMario is all about leadership. That's what he is. At 37 years old, I guess he still has something in the tank. But I think he was brought in here to be a leader for that defense. I thought that was a smart move too. Dane Belton as well, former Giant, brings him in. And even Geno. I mean, you could say whatever you want about Geno, and everybody, Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith's not the same guy he was when he was with the Jets. And we always know he's had ability. He had some very good years in Seattle. I understand he didn't have a good year last year with the Raiders, but the Raiders stunk. He still threw 19 touchdown passes. No, he threw like 17 interceptions. He was behind a bad offensive line. Geno could throw the football. I mean, there's no question. You give him time, he could put it out there. And I said this to some of my Jet brethren who, oh, my God, Geno. I mean, come on. What did you think you were getting, Joe Montana? What were you getting? What were you getting? Okay, you want to say Kirk Cousins. Look, they weren't paying $80 million for Malik Willis because who knows what he really is. You're not paying that kind of money for a guy that's really an unproven guy as a starter. Have no idea. Tua Tagovailoa, do you really want him? We all know about the concussion problems. He's terrible in cold weather. Let him go to Atlanta. I wanted no part of Kyler Murray. The guy, instead of looking at game film, he's playing, Mortal Kombat or whatever he's doing. I don't want this guy. So Geno's a stopgap. So what's the problem with that? We're not going to the playoffs this year. We're not winning the Super Bowl this year. He's not our quarterback of the future. And I look at it this way, too. I really do, Jake. He's got something to prove in New York. Geno comes to New York with a big chip on his shoulder.
That's what he said when he gave an interview to Josina Anderson. He says, I have unfinished business there. I want redemption for what happened, basically.
Yeah. And so I think it's a smart move by Mucci, to be very honest with you. And we've seen many 35-year-old quarterbacks who played their best football at 35 and older. So I'm not upset with it. Like I said, my only negative, and I love what Darren Mucci has done here. I love it. I love the fact that Frank Reich is our offensive coordinator. I would have liked to see Wink Martindale as the D coordinator, but it looks like we're almost going to have, and I don't want to compare, but please don't get me wrong. The 85 Bears, but you look at the 85 Bears, Mike Ditka ran the offense, Buddy Ryan ran the defense, and that's what you're going to see here. Frank Reich is going to be the offensive coach. He's going to run the offense, and Glenn is going to run the defense. So let's see how that plays out. I'm good, bro. I said outside of letting Folk go, I thought that was why we did that. Haven't we learned yet with kickers? We had Folk before, we let him go. Then we had Jason Myers. We let him go. He almost was the MVP in the Super Bowl this past year. And now we need a kicker again. So I'm upset by that. But outside of that move, everything else that Darren Mucci has done, I'm completely on board with.
So I agree with you. And the only thing I'd say on Folk, I wanted him back. I think every Jet fan did. Chris Banjo was such a great special teams coach this past year. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because I was critical when they released Thomas Morstead a year ago and they found Austin McNamara out of nowhere, and he was great. So I'll give him a chance to try and find a real kicker. They signed Cade York yesterday, Joe, but he's going to probably be a guy that's competing for the kicking job with someone else he hasn't kicked in the NFL in the last 2 years. So we'll see what they do there. But staying with Geno, I'm with you. Look, he wasn't my first choice. I preferred Kirk Cousins. Whether it's true or not, Cousins didn't want to be a Jet, and the Jets apparently they didn't want him. That's fine. Derek Carr, I was open to him, but he didn't play last year. You worry how much he has left. I'm fine with Geno because the best part about acquiring Geno is you're paying him $3 million. So if it doesn't work out, well, you're drafting a quarterback in 2027 anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I look, and like I said, it makes sense. He's got something to prove. I don't think there's any question about that. And he can still throw the ball. And our offense, look, the defense was not a professional defense by the end of the year. And obviously, Brady Cook was not an NFL quarterback. But you look at the offense that we have. We got a solid offensive line, all right? I know Vera Tucker's gone. He goes to the Patriots, of course. But you couldn't bring him back. He gets hurt all the time. I had no issue there. Simpson went to the Ravens. They're going to have to get a guy at guard.
They signed Dylan Parham yesterday, who's good. He's like the only good Raiders offensive lineman, so he's the new left guard.
Okay, I didn't see that. Good. There you go. So, you got the offensive line intact, the bookend tackles. You got Myers, you got Tippmann. Now this guy, what's his name again, this guy that brought in?
Dylan Parham. Yeah, he can play left and right guard, and it also gives them some flexibility. If they want to take someone in the draft, they now have the flexibility to move Tippmann back to center. You can move one of these guys to left or right guard. So now they have a solid 5 guys in place going into the draft, which is nice.
Right. And now you got two, you got Garrett Wilson coming back. You got Brees coming back. You got Allen coming back from the injury. You got the kid Mitchell on the outside. I guess Mucci, I don't know if he's coming back or not. I guess he's still a free agent.
Mucci signed with the Panthers, so he's
okay,
out.
So he's gone. But you got Mitchell here, who really showed some promise last year. They got him in a steal in the steal of a trade for Sauce Gardner. I mean, the offense has they got some firepower a little bit there. Maybe you draft a wide receiver. I know a lot of the mock drafts have them taking this kid. What's the kid from Arizona State at 16? I don't know if I would do that. I think I want I think in the first round, I want 2 defensive players. That's what I want in the first round. Really? Yeah.
Well, it seems like they're set up, Joe, with pick 2 being one of the pass rushers, whether it's Arvell Reese or it's Ruben Bain or it's David Bailey. And then after that, though, like you look at the going rate for receivers and free agency, you have like slightly better than average receivers making $20-something million. I think they're going to draft a receiver pretty early unless they trade for Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars.
Right. Well, which would not be bad. I know he had kind of a down year last year, but I do like him. Look, I think you need to take a receiver. I'm with you 100%. I don't know if I take it at 16, though. Maybe you can still take it at 33. And I think you got to draft a quarterback, bro. I think it's somewhere. And now I'm not that I love this guy, but I'm big. See, here's why I don't like Simpson, because I would not take Simpson. If you could take Simpson, if you get him, if he's sitting there, let's say even at 33 or certainly at 44, then I would take him. If Simpson's there at 44, okay, I'll take him with a 2nd round pick. At 16, I look at this guy and I say, wait a minute, this guy started 15 games in college. I'm leery of that. You know what I mean? I want a guy take a shot at a guy like Carson Beck. He started 42 games in college. He was at winning programs, Georgia, the year he had at Miami last year, going all the way to the championship game. He's a big, tall guy. I know Reich likes those big quarterbacks. I would take a shot at him. I'd even take a shot at the Penn State quarterback later on, and if he's there, let's say in the 4th round, or maybe you could trade up if he's there in the 3rd round if you want to take a shot at him. I don't know if I take him in the 2nd round. But, so that's my feeling. I guess it wouldn't be terrible if you took this kid, the wide receiver at 16, but because they really have addressed the defense so much here in free agency. But we'll see. Let's see how it plays out.
Do you have a preference for the backup quarterback, Joe? It felt like Carson Wentz was the favorite. Then new reports came out that he's no longer seemingly an option. I think it could be Tyrod again.
Is he completely – he hasn't signed with anybody. But is he completely not an option? Do we know that?
It felt like he was going to be signed, and then the Athletic said, well, not so fast. He's got other options. It doesn't feel like that's happening now. I mean, for me, they have like basically 2 approaches. You could try and trade for like an unknown guy who needs a chance, maybe like a guy like Will Levis, for example, you do something like that, or Spencer Rattler, who could be available. Or you bring back, Tyrod, or you trade for Andy Dalton, who's expendable now in Carolina, who knows Frank Reich. It feels like it's either like the young, unproven guy who's the backup with maybe some upside, or they just try and get like a consistent veteran who is competent.
It's too bad Tyrod gets hurt all the time, because I like him a lot as a backup. That's the problem. I mean, I think he would have signed him already to be the backup if it wasn't for the constant injury. He plays 2 games and he's hurt. So that's the negative on him. I don't want to expend too much. I mean, look, I like Andy Dalton. I do like him. Of all the names you threw out there, he's probably the one I like the best. I guess you'd have to trade for him. I don't know. Look, they just got what they trade, a 6th rounder in the Geno deal, and they got a 7th rounder back.
That's what it would be for Dalton.
Right. Something like that. I could see getting him.
Joe Benigno is with us here. Hit the like button if you're just tuning in. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We got a little ASMANIAC Madness coming up. It's a bracket show.
Can I mention this too before we get to the ASMANIACs and all of that?
Yes.
And that is the passing of the great Matt Snell, who passed away the other day.
I was going to ask you about this. Yep.
Could have easily been the MVP in Super Bowl III at the big game, 121 yards rushing, rushed for the only touchdown in the game for the Jets. He could have easily been the MVP. There's no doubt about it. There he is. I think the reason he wasn't is because, Namath guaranteed it. And, people forget one thing about Joe. Joe called that whole game from the line of scrimmage. Think about that. Nobody does that anymore. And that, that kind of goes under the radar when you talk about that. He called the entire game from the line. But Matt Snell could have easily been the MVP. Maybe they should have been the co-MVPs. I would have had no problem if he was. But he was a great running back for us. He was our really first major guy that we drafted out of Ohio State. Was the rookie of the year in the AFL, I guess his first year in 1964, and was a tremendous back, man. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. Him and Boozer, they really complemented each other so well. They both could run the ball, obviously, could both catch the ball out of the backfield. They were great blockers. You talk about blitz picker-uppers. They were great at doing that. Great player for the Jets. He really was. And it's unfortunate that he had a falling out with the organization. There was some kind of issue with Leon Hess. I don't know exactly what it was. When they put Matt into the Ring of Honor, he was not there for the ceremony, which is unfortunate. But he was a terrific Jet, and you should be out there. I don't know. Knowing you probably did it already. You're probably auctioning off that Matt Snell jersey. That's one I don't have yet. I got to get one. Number 41, great Jet, the late, great Matt Snell.
You're not wrong. We did give away a signed Matt Snell photo to
pay homage
to him on the show. Love that. By the way, we do have a giveaway today on the show for those just tuning in. Wayne Corbett signed helmet. You have this show and my afternoon show today for your chance to enter. Let me just quickly open up voting here for ASMANIAC Madness. Chef Kevin and the Hamburger, 2 of my great callers. The YouTube chat will vote who advances in the tournament to decide the best Jake Asman Show caller. So right now, voting is officially underway. Hit it. Both people competing have sent in the following messages. Chef Kevin says, y'all know Chef Kevin's a real ASMANIAC. We have one question for Hamburger. How many times did you vote outside Jake and Joe B on a Thursday? We could count on a great show for the community. Let's go Jets. Shout out to you, Chef Kevin. And the Hamburger wrote in, I have an investigation to do today at work, so I'm not able to call in for ASMANIAC Madness. Here are 5 memberships as an apology. Have a great day, everyone. So the Hamburger gifting 5 memberships, 5 raffle tickets to the community. Joe, I got some other things Jet-related.
I got to tell you this. I mean, the production you do is just second to none.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I have to say that. I mean, you are prepared for everything, bro. I mean, let's be real about it. I mean, there's nobody like Jake. The guy just, the professionalism is second to none.
I appreciate that, Joe. You're the man. I wanted to get your thoughts specifically on Aaron Glenn now, because they made all these moves to get his players defensively. It almost feels like this should have been their plan a year ago, get experienced coaches to help Aaron Glenn, who's a first-timer, bring in guys that know what he wants. They didn't have enough leaders on the team. That was clear. It almost feels like this should have been their plan a year ago, but they're in a weird spot, Joe. They got to be an improved team. They got to win games. Otherwise, he's not going to be here to see potentially the benefit of those 3 first-round picks in a better quarterback class. Give me your thoughts on the head coach and just the expectations, the pressure on him now in year 2.
Well, I don't love him. I mean, I'm very high on Mucci, but I'm very concerned about Aaron Glenn. And what makes me feel better is Frank Reich is here. And let's be honest about it. Frank Reich will be the head coach of this team. If this team gets off to a brutal start again, and I don't really think they are, I think this team's going to be a little better than people think. Like I said, especially with the moves. Again, I'm not happy about the kicking situation, but I think this team's going to be better than you think. They can't be worse than they were to start the year. But, there is a professional coach in right there. And I think the fact that you got him running the offense is going to really make it. I think the fact that Glenn is really probably not going to be involved at all in the offense, I think that's probably a good thing for this team going forward.
You just wonder, does Frank Reich have a lot left, or has the game passed him by? Because he didn't go well in Carolina. He got fired. Then he was at Stanford, whatever. It's not the same thing, and they weren't great. Yeah, how much?
Let's be honest, too. He was doing a good job in Indy, and Andrew Luck pulled the rug out from under the guy. Yep. I mean, he left. And the guy's 28 years old or whatever. He's deciding to quit football, and give him credit. He never came back. So, but that's something you got to consider too. He did have a winning record in Indy.
Yep. It just with Glenn, it feels like with him calling the defense and the players they've added, like we understand the offense is going to be limited if Geno Smith is not great. We understand that, but like there needs to be like a dramatic difference defensively, because you can't come out and say, "Oh, my superpower is play calling and take over the defense." Right. And it's got to be much better immediately, because there's no excuse. They have a representable amount of talent that they're still going to add in all likelihood with the number 2 pick in the draft to a unit that is much improved.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, the defense has got to be better. Look, you got to believe they're going to get an interception this year. I mean, come on. I mean, with Fitzpatrick back there, Stevens again, maybe a couple of the young guys, Moore and Thomas. And you got to believe we're going to get some turnovers with this football team now. So they can't be worse defensively. And I really think the offense has a chance to be pretty decent. I mean, you get a healthy Garrett Wilson. Like I said, say whatever you want about Geno. Geno's had a couple 4,000-yard seasons throwing the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, there's no doubt. You give him time, he can get it done. And, he's got still has a big time arm. So, give him some time to throw. I think Geno's going to be a lot better than people want to believe. I really do.
I like the fact that you brought this up, the chip on the shoulder. That's a big deal. You've always talked about that. When guys have something to prove, those are the type of guys you really like. That's why you loved Baker Mayfield. I remember wanting him to be a Jet.
Yep. No question about it. And Geno's got a lot to prove. All the media about him has been negative. And he had some good moments here. I mean, I think if he was coached better, the problem was the biggest issue with Geno was the dynamic between Rex Ryan and John Idzik. Okay. I don't think Rex really wanted to draft him. Idzik kind of forced Geno on him. Then Rex made the big mistake of playing Sanchez in that stupid Snoopy Bowl game. There they are in that stupid Snoopy Bowl game. And then Mark got hurt. That forced Geno to start. And Geno wasn't horrible. I mean, he went 8-8 the 1 year. I didn't look the whole thing with M. Campali and everything that went down with that. There was there was a lot of maturity issues with Geno. That's a long time ago now, bro. He's 35 years old and he's had success. He had success in Seattle. So I'm not that upset about it. And like I say, he's a stopgap. He's not here to be the quarterback for the next 10 years. He's just a bridge guy to get us to whoever our franchise quarterback's going to be, which more than likely will be, drafted next year when you got all these big guys coming out of college.
It's just amazing how long Geno's been in the league. Like to think that, he was throwing touchdown passes to Stephen Hill and Santonio Holmes. And, he's made over $100 million. He's had a hell of a career for a guy that, like, if you would have told a Jet fan when he left the team after the 2016 season, he'd still be in the league at 2026, people would have thought you were nuts. So I give him a lot of credit. He's had a really nice career for a guy who looked like was going to be out of the league in a couple of years.
Yeah. And like I said, again, it's something to prove, but a lot of 35, we got Vinny Testaverde. How old was Vinny when we got him? And look at he had his best years as a Jet, when he was, mid to late 30s, and we've seen that with a lot of guys, Jim Plunkett, Rich Gannon, we could go on. And Geno's already had some success. I mean, he had some good years in Seattle. You can't deny it. Teams that went to the playoffs, So I know
Vinny was 36, Joe. You're right. That? He was 36 when the Jets got him.
Right. And look at and he had one of the best years in 1998. He had maybe the best year you could say outside of Namath than any quarterback ever had. He threw 29 touchdown passes. They won 12 games. They went to the AFC Championship game. So, like I said, and there's been a lot of guys, Rich Gannon, Plunkett. Look at Brady. He had big years after, and I understand it's Brady, but he had big years after he was 40 years old. So I'm sure Geno's got a little bit left in the tank. I really believe that.
Hit the like button if you're just tuning in. If you guys have a question for Joe about the Jets, anything NFL, anything New York sports, write it in, and we will bring it up on the screen. In terms of like the expectations, Joe, you said earlier, this team is not going to be a playoff team. but how many games do they have to win for you to feel comfortable with this head coach being here for another season?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be comfortable with the coach being here for another season, no matter what they do, unless they go out and win, and make the playoff and win 10 games or something like that, which I don't think is happening. I need competitive football, bro. They were not an NFL team at the end of the year. And I understand that they were tanking. Let's be real. They were playing Brady Cook, who's not an NFL quarterback. The defense was an absolute, Fernando Mendoza at IU would have shredded. They would have shredded that defense, what they put out there at the end of the year last year. So we got professional players now on the D. I want to see a competitive season, And people say, well, you don't want to win too much because, you want to have a high pick. I don't know. We got 3 first-round picks. We'll be able to make a move with that to move up to get a quarterback because of all that draft capital next year if it comes down to that. So I want to win. I want to have a good year, But give me a football team. Don't give me how many games did we get blown? Every game I went to 3 football games last year. Every one of them we got killed. The Dallas game, Carolina, even though it was a close game somewhat, you never thought they had a chance to win the game.
I was at that one. That was brutal.
Right. And you were at the Miami game too that I was at. And I don't know if you were at that game, but I think you got me the tickets for that game.
Yep.
And I went to that game and they got killed. The game was over in 5 minutes into the game. I want to see competitive football, bro. I want to see, go out there and win some games. Go out there and beat Buffalo. Go out there and beat New England next year in a game. You know what I mean? Let's go.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Joe, they obviously started 0-7 last year. That's
right.
If anything close to that happens, Glenn might not make it, to your point. But
that's right.
Like for all the issues Robert Salah had as the head coach, his second year they started 6-3 with Zach Wilson as the quarterback. They were 7-4, and then Mike White got hurt. Be fake good. Give us a start 4-4, right? If you're not going to make the playoffs, fine. But you have to come out and win some games early because I worry if they get off to a brutal start, the guys just check out. The messaging is not going to work unless you see some results. And I think last year it's crazy, but I think losing that week 1 game to the Steelers, it just kind of snowballed from there because they felt like they had a win. They played great. They were ready to come out. They had the fumble by Gibson. They lose the game. And then they no-show against the Bills. And then the spiral really took into effect. They have to get off to a much better start if they want to make anything of this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, bro. I agree. But I also look at it that there's pressure on Glenn, but there's really not pressure on the team. I don't know what your expectation level as a Jet fan really is going into this year. Yeah, I want a competitive team. I don't expect any kind of great year, and they can only be better than what our expectations will be. That's my view on it. And like I said, maybe Glenn's got to win games. I get it, but if Glenn's got to go, well, I'm giving Frank Reich the head coaching job. Now, would I want to see Mike Tomlin here or something? Yeah. But I don't, we're in a lot better shape right now going into this season than we were going into last season. Let's be honest. With the moves that were made, with the moves Mucci has made, with the draft capital that we have now, this franchise is in a much better state than they were going into last year.
Well, you're starting to see some of the rumblings of if they have a good draft class, people seem to like the moves right now. We'll see how it plays out, but they're not successful. Glenn doesn't take the necessary steps forward. There's a real path where Mucci's here hiring the next coach and Glenn's not. That could very well happen if they don't show real improvement.
Look, I think the popularity level of Darren Mucci, I don't know what the polls would say. I don't want to get into that, because I don't trust polls, but I would think that it's pretty high for Mucci and very low for Glenn.
You learned how to say his name. That's all I need to know. He's not Muhe. He's Mucci now. We got it right.
No, Mucci, this guy's got an idea. I mean, he's really showed me something. Like I said, very upset about Folk, and I don't get that. And we'll see what he does. Like you said, what was this guy you said they brought in?
Cade York. He's not going to just be handed the job, though. He'll be competing with someone.
Right. But outside of that, I mean, all these moves he's made, like I said, Darren Mucci sold me. He began selling me that he's for real when he made the Sauce Gardner trade, which I loved. We may look back at that trade as a turning point in the history of this franchise. You may look at that. And if we wind up getting the young quarterback that we've been waiting for 60 years now, okay, at least I have, you're going to look back at that trade as one of the real, big moves that kind of maybe turn this franchise around. So I'm high on Mucci right now, and let's see. Let's hope it continues to be that way.
So, in regards now to the draft, and you brought up Simpson, let's say they did take him at 16. What would your reaction be to that?
Well, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be, I can't believe they did this. I would say this, okay? He wouldn't be playing right away. So we know that. That's one thing that, unfortunately, whether it was Sanchez, whether it was Sam Darnold, whether it was Wilson, these guys played immediately, okay? Even Geno played pretty much immediately.
He wasn't supposed to, but he did.
But he did.
Yeah.
Like out of the second round. That won't be the case now with Simpson, okay? If you take him at 16, if they like him that much, if Mucci likes him that much, I watched a lot of SEC football. I watched a lot of Alabama last year. He started out really well, and then he kind of faded late in the year. Obviously, he had that terrible game. He got hurt in the game against IU in the Rose Bowl, but he got hurt in that game. But he was
hurt before that. He said he dropped to 190 pounds. He had to take. He had a back injury, and then the medicine he was taking led to like stomach inflammation. He couldn't have anything but chicken soup, he said, and he went from 215 to 190, and you could see it on film. Like he wasn't the same guy.
Right. Sounds like my diet, what I have to eat. But no, anyway.
You big chicken soup guy?
I love. It's the only soup I can eat. I mean, come on. I mean, give me chicken. That's about all I eat, bro. With the issues that I have physically, you don't want to go into it. But the thing that I would be confident with if you did go with Simpson at 16, and he's going to get. And let's be honest, he's going to get taken in the first round. You know how that plays out. Somebody's taking Simpson in the first round.
Well, he could be like Dart, where a team trades back into round one together. Right. It could be the Jets. What if the Jets are worried the Cardinals, who have the second pick of the second round in front of the Jets, are worried that they're going to take him? The Jets might have to make a move if they want.
Hey, look, if the Jets did that, if the Jets wind up, using 2 and 16 and whatever they do with that, obviously you're going to take a defensive player or two. And okay, let's say they take a wide receiver at 16 and they trade back in the first round to get Simpson. I'd be completely down with that. I would be happy with that, I got to say. But the one thing that I would feel good about with him is you got Frank Reich here. You got a guy that I think can help tutor a young quarterback like that because he played quarterback in the NFL. Frank Reich is responsible for the 2 greatest comebacks in the history of the best in college football, the best in the NFL, with Maryland against Miami, and, of course, the classic playoff game against the Houston Oilers in 1992 when they were down 35-3. So, he's had success. He was the backup for all those years to Kelly, but he did play a lot, in Buffalo. I like playing with the Jets for a little bit too. It wasn't very good, but whatever. But I have confidence in him that he can help develop a young quarterback if they do wind up taking Simpson.
Well, just the coaching staff with experience, it's night and day. Because you don't see a head coach after a year fire both coordinators and have to replace 10 of 21 assistants. Like what Glenn did to still be here. It's historic the amount of turnover on that side, on both sides of the ball, really.
Yep. No question about it. And like I said, the Frank Reich move is really very, very good move. Very, very high on it.
Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you have a question for Joe, write it in. This one is from Joe the Jet, who super chats. What's more likely, Aller, Green, or Beck on day 3? So Taylon Green, I believe, is the quarterback of Arkansas. The Jets met with him at the Senior Bowl. They met with him at the Combine. He'd be like, he broke all these athletic feats at the Combine. He's a freak athlete. He just doesn't have a lot of experience. So he'd be a true wild card day 3 dart throw. Beck, we all watched in college, and Aller's super talented. He just didn't have a good year last year, got hurt. James Franklin got fired. It was a mess. If they took any of those guys on day 3, to me, there's logic in all that. Like they're going to take someone if they don't take Simpson earlier than that. Yeah,
no, look, I don't know a lot about Green, but I do know Aller. I certainly know Beck. I'd be good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that, bro. I'm 100% good with that.
Super chat from Mike, who writes, and I think it's clear that the Salah rot had infected all the young players. Once Rodgers failed, they all were mentally defeated. I look at this as year 1 for AG.
First of all, let me just say this: Rodgers didn't fail. This guy, he threw 28 touchdown passes that year. He threw more touchdown passes with the Jets 2 years ago than he did for Pittsburgh last year. Okay, and this idea that he failed is nonsense. They blame it all on him.
Yep.
We forget that the owner fired the head coach after 5 games. They were 2-3, and he dumped them. We forget that the kicker absolutely killed him. How many games did he kill? At least 3 games that Zerline cost them. They had a defense that stunk. How many times did they have the lead late and the defense gave it up? This idea that Rodgers failed is nonsense. It's nonsense. And they should have brought him back last year. You know how I feel about that. He had a pretty solid year for the Steelers last year. They did lead him to the playoffs. I don't know what he's doing now. He's still waiting to sign, I guess. I don't know.
He might go in the black hole again.
Yeah, I guess he's got to go there. Look, he's a very eccentric dude. There's no doubt about it. I still think he'll wind up with McCarthy in Pittsburgh again.
Yep.
But there's no denying that he's an all-time great quarterback. So, and the idea that he failed is crap. Like I say, he threw 28 touchdowns. Only 2 Jets ever threw more, and that's Fitzpatrick and Vinny. So I'm tired of hearing how he failed. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it was all put on him, which is crazy. He played very similar this year as he did with the Jets.
Because the media didn't, how I feel about sports writers. The media, couldn't wait to get him here. They were all hopped up. Oh, Rodgers, they were doing a dance, They put him on Hard Knocks and all of this. Oh, my God. Oh, it's so tremendous. And then the injury happens, which could only happen to us. And then when things started to go wrong the year he played, they put it on him. They basically blamed him. You're right. So, you know how that works.
And speaking of Salah, what were your thoughts? First time I had you on, what were your thoughts on him getting a head coaching job with the Titans? And he's bringing in basically every former Jet. He traded for Solomon Thomas yesterday.
Yeah. You knew he'd get another job. You knew that. He's a very good – look, guys, one thing that we've seen in the NFL, I think every head coach deserves 2 shots. I do. If you failed the first time – look, Bill Belichick wasn't doing great in Cleveland. Look what he turned out to be in New England. So I think every head coach deserves at least a second shot. He kind of remade himself again, going back to Shanahan in San Francisco. We know he's a very good defensive coordinator. I knew he'd get another shot. And look, he went where he has a quarterback. Let's be honest with Salah. You say whatever you want about him. He never had a quarterback here. He didn't have a chance to really coach Aaron Rodgers that second time.
He got 5 games.
He got five games into it. So he really didn't have a great chance to coach Rodgers. He wasn't going anywhere where he didn't have a quarterback already. And he goes to Tennessee where he's got a young guy in Cam Ward. So I'm not surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is successful there. I really wouldn't be.
Do you like him bringing in Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator? Because they've signed a bunch of former Jets and Giants. JFM is there now. They made the Jermaine trade. They signed what's his name for the Giants? Wandell is their new receiver they added. So it's basically a it's the New York Titans literally in Nashville.
Yeah, no, I think Dable's a great offensive coordinator. I think he's he's one of the guys that really helped develop Josh Allen. I don't think there's any question about that. I think he got a little bit of a raw deal with the Giants because he's really, to me, and I understand Shane drafted Dart, but I think the guy that really wanted Dart was Dable.
Yep.
So you got to give him credit for that. Now look, it's obviously you got John Harbaugh now if you're the Giants, so that certainly worked out. But as far as an LC, I think that's a good move for Salah. I really do.
Dave Brigger wants to know, does Joe still text with Salah?
No. You know what? Let me put it this way. I texted him when he got the Titan job, congratulating him on his new gig. He does not respond to my text, and I don't expect him to.
Interesting. I'm surprised he didn't respond. He didn't shoot you. Thank you.
After the whole disaster with Wilson that went down, the last year, the last year there or the year before the final year, I'm not surprised. That's okay. I got no issue. I got no issue with the coach. I have no issue with him at all. He was always very good to me.
Mace B with a super chat. Losing teams on Jet schedule. Vegas, Titans, Browns. Vikings have made big moves. Can't see 7 wins. Schedule is tough. Would you be happy with 5 wins?
You know what? You don't have no idea. That comment, you don't know what they're going to be. And you don't know what these teams are. Teams that you think stink might be good. Teams that you think are going to be good might not be as good. So I we have no idea once you start playing the NFL schedule how it's going to play out. A lot of it is, when do you play a team? Are they healthy when you're playing them? Are you catching them when maybe their quarterback is out? So you can't just say, I only see 5 wins. I don't know. Don't make predictions like that because if anything, one thing that we've learned over the years, you following the National Football League, is the unpredictability year to year in the NFL. There's going to be teams you think are going to be really good that won't be, and there's going to be teams that you think are going to be absolutely terrible that surprise you. So I don't get hung up in the schedule at all.
The only consistent thing has been the Jets are just bad, but everyone
Right.
else could have all this success out of
Right.
nowhere and quickly.
Right. That's right. Well, look, they're due. They're due to be at least, like I said, they're due to be a competitive football team this year. They really are.
Doc Jet fan checks in. Doc, a great caller of mine and an OG Jet fan like you, Joe. He says, Joe, what are the odds you would have given me if I told you that Geno was the Jet QB in 2016 and in 2026, and there were no playoff wins in between?
Yeah, no, I'd be shocked. Look, I'm really not surprised that. Look, we've seen, like I said this before. We've seen so many quarterbacks that develop late. I mean, who would have thought when you look at the draft class with Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, I think Lamar was in that draft class. And who's the guy that won the Super Bowl before anybody? None of them even got there, and it's Sam Darnold. So the quarterback position, look, when I was growing up, right, the rule of thumb was quarterbacks take 4 years to develop, right? Once they get to the NFL. That was generally the rule of thumb. It takes 4 years for them really to develop into a solid NFL quarterback. You know, Namath kind of developed really quickly, but most guys don't. And then Dan Marino in 83, immediately, once he started playing, he was immediately good. You know, but most guys don't. I mean, you look at John Elway, man, his first year, he had a rough time. They actually wound up benching him in Denver, you know. So that's always the rule of thumb. And now these guys play immediately. And I don't think it's the best thing in the world. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes, he sat for a year, you know, behind Smith, right? Behind Alex Smith in Kansas City before he started playing. You know, Lamar Jackson didn't play right away in Baltimore. So these guys need to sit a little bit before they play. Rarely does it work. You know, it worked a little bit with Sanchez with the Jets, and I think the reason it worked there is because they had such a good team around them. They had a terrific defense. They had a really good veteran offensive line. You know, veteran guys like Thomas Jones, you know, Jericho Cotchery, you know, different guys like that. Braylon Edwards, when they brought him in, they had these veteran guys there. You know, and I think that helps Sanchez. I really do. But rarely does it work out when these guys play from day one. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, how long did he sit before he finally played, you know, behind Brett Favre? So, you know, I think that the guys really need to take some time and not play right away out of college.
Let me in with a super chat. What's up, Jake and Joe? How do you think fans will react when Geno runs out of the tunnel in the Jets home opener in his second run with the Jets?
Well, you'll be an idiot to boo him. You know, and I'm sure there'll be Jet fans that will. But why?
I don't think they will actually, Joe. Because again, like it's week one, you get excited. It's the one time MetLife might be sold out with Jet fans.
I would hope that the Jet fan now is intelligent enough to look back and realize that this is not the Geno Smith we drafted out of West Virginia, you know, 10 years ago, whatever it was. He's much more mature now. He's got something to prove, and we want him to be successful. I mean, what Jet fan doesn't want to see Geno be successful with us? Nobody. So what's the point of booing him? You know what I mean? There's no reason for it. We should be, when he comes out of that tunnel, he should get a solid ovation from the Jet fans.
Hakeem the Dream says, much respect to Mr. Benigno, the best host in WFAN history. The overnights with Joe and Tony Page was the peak of the station.
Look, I don't want to get into too much. The fan will never be what it once was. You know I worked part-time there. You know, the days of Imus, the days of Mike and the Mad Dog, the days of Steve Summers and myself overnight, you know, all of that. You know, Eddie Coleman and Dave Sims. I mean, those days are, you know, we'll never see anything like that again.
Well, for me, when I grew up listening to the station, it was the end of Mike and the Mad Dog, but it was you and Evan. You and Evan were the best midday show, in my opinion, in the history of the station.
Now, we had a great run, Evan and I. Love Evan. You know, he's doing a good job now. Great job with Tiki. I think he's pretty happy that he's back doing the 10 o'clock show too. So I think he's happy.
He gets to go to more games and score more games.
You know what I mean? That 2 to 6:30 shift was never great. I'll tell you that. But you know, I love Evan. We had a great run together. But look, the heyday, we've all seen the heyday of the fan, you know. So, and sports radio in general, sports talk radio in general, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, it's just a different time. When you think back to your fan days, do you miss doing the show? I know you hate the commute, but do you miss actually doing the show every day and interacting with the New York Sport fan?
No,
So
no.
you're good.
I do not
You're
miss.
happy.
I don't miss it at all, bro. I got to tell you seriously. I'm happy. I do my little show on a Saturday. I do my little podcast. I do not miss the commute into the city. Thank God I'm not going into the city these days. That's for sure. I just no. I did it for 25 years, and it was a great run. I was fortunate to be able to do what I did, but I really don't miss it, to be very honest with you. It ran its course for me as far as, an everyday thing.
Do you see yourself continuing with the Saturday morning show going forward, or do you think that's coming to an end at some point too?
Well, I mean, look, everything comes to an end. So, I mean, but right now I'm doing it. Right now I'm good doing it. It sounds to me, after talking to the powers that be at the Fan, it sounds like I can do this for as long as I want. And right now, I'm enjoying doing it on a Saturday. I do it from home. I'm back to doing 5 to 9 again. Back to doing a 4-hour show. We got to get Asman on one of these days. Back to doing a 4-hour show from 5 to 9 a.m. So right now I'm good with it. We're going into a good time of the season. You got all the college basketball stuff, the NFL free agency stuff into the draft, baseball starting, and all that. How about Team Italy beating Team USA? How about that?
I'm glad you brought it. I was going to end with some baseball stuff. Have you been into the WBC?
I can't say I'm really into it, but I have put it on. I mean, I'll say I watched a little bit last night. Was it Italy and Mexico? I watched a little bit of that.
Shout out to, by the way, I don't know if you know this. So Vinny Pasquantino, who had the three home runs. He is a diehard. I've messaged with him, but we're going to try and get him on the show.
Really?
He's a diehard Jet fan. He's a listener of mine. Yep. He is a Jet fan. Get this. Not because he's from New York. Growing up, he loved the Jets because his name is Vinny, and the first quarterback he watched was Vinny Testaverde. He had never seen an athlete named Vinny, so he just latched on to the Jets. In fact, his Twitter picture, Joe, is MetLife. He was at the opener for Rodgers' first game. The Jets always send him like jerseys when they had the new jerseys a couple of years ago. So he is a huge Jet fan, and he is the reason Team USA basically gets to play on into the knockout round now.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that Vinny Testaverde was also an Italian. So that kind of goes right into he plays for the Royals, right?
He's the Royals' first baseman.
Yeah, good. Let's go. Good for him. Good for him. But I have, like I said, the one thing I got to tell you this. Okay, now the one thing that I am bothered about with the World Baseball Classic, and I don't know if you know where I'm going here or not, but do I have to see Juan Soto doing, he's out there with the Team Dominican doing the lambada. I mean, this guy looks like he could not be freaking happier that he's doing what he's doing with the Dominican. Can I see that with the Mets? Can I see him doing a little, twirl, maybe doing a little chubby checker twist or something? Can I see that? No, really. Can a little Michael Jackson moonwalk when he gets he really gets a big hit for the Mets, but when he gets that big hit or that big walk, which he loves to have, you know what I'm saying, bro? And how about the other day? I happened to have it on. I think the Dominican was up like 9 or 10 to 1. And of course, he hits a 2-run homer after they're up 10 to 1. I just so
I've been into it.
I tell you, it bothers me. Can I see that enthusiasm? You're getting you got a $765 freaking million salary. Can I see that enthusiasm with my baseball team?
I like it. I think that's totally fair. By the way, here's your guy, Vinny, big Jet fan, rocking a Sauce jersey last year.
Wow.
Yeah, easy. Shout out to Vinny. I have to send this to him. We've messaged back and forth about the team. He is truly like, there's like all celebrity fans who say they're Jet fans, so they don't care. He's really a true diehard.
That kind of like the frauds that sit at front row with the Garden.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I got to say this too. So 2 games last week. I'm watching the Knicks last week. Couple games. I think it was the San Antonio game. I think they were both the Sunday games. San Antonio. And then the game against Oklahoma City. That wasn't a Sunday, but those were the games, right? And who's sitting courtside with his Met hat on at the Knicks game?
Oh, Steve Cohen.
Yeah. What are you doing there? Shouldn't he be in Port St. Lucie? Right, Steve? He's too worried about his stupid hedge fund. And thank you again for Diaz and Pete. I appreciate it. him, and I blame him more than the little genius, I have to tell you.
Wow, you blame the owner more than Boy Genius?
Of course. He's the owner. And I'll tell you this too, and I'm going to say this. The Boy Genius wasn't going to do anything until Steve Cohen got involved. All of a sudden, they were never in on Kyle Tucker. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're offering Kyle Tucker big money. Now he wound up signing with the Dodgers, and it didn't take him too long to sign Bichette moments later. So I think Cohen got involved and said, hey, hey, David, you better start doing something here. And if you notice, all of a sudden, once the owner got involved, they brought in Bichette. They made a trade for Luis Robert. They brought in the pitcher Peralta, so we'll see.
But they were always going to do something. They weren't just going to do nothing all offseason.
Well, they did something. They dumped the greatest home run hitter in the history of the franchise. Couldn't wait to
That's
get rid
to
of
me the criticism, right? Because there's no reason why Alonso can't be the DH right now.
Oh, please. And let's be honest too, bro, okay? And how about losing Diaz? How do you do that? How do you let to me, it's losing Nick Folk is very similar to losing Edwin Diaz. Very similar. Okay. He's the best closer in baseball. We let him walk, right? To the freaking Dodgers, no less. We got the best kicker in the game, and we let him walk twice now. So that bothers me. But going back to Alonso, look, this nonsense that David Stearns threw out there about run prevention. Really? You know what because he's got a guy playing first and never played first. He's got a guy playing third and never played third. You're going to have it more than likely. Maybe Benj is going to be the right fielder for the Mets. If not, it's going to be Brett Beatty, who never played right field. You let the best closer in the game go for this stiff Devin Williams to be your closer, and you're trying to talk about run prevention. What run prevention really means is I'm getting rid of Pete. That's what run prevention is.
That's
chance for letting Pete walk. And I hope I'm really rooting hard for him. I want Pete to hit 55 freaking home runs this year in Camden Yards. I really do.
I just hope he doesn't do it against the Yankees. But
I hope he does it there too. And
of course you do.
I tell you what, he's coming back September 14th to Citi Field. I hope he win the game, but I hope Pete hits 3 home runs.
Some super chats here.
Stiff Devin Williams. So.
that to me, good luck. If you're getting the Devin Williams that Yankee fans had to watch last year.
No, you tell me. That move, let me tell you something. I think we got a pretty nice team, even with the loss of Pete and Diaz. I think we got a pretty nice team. But the bullpen scares the hell out of me, bro. And Devin Williams is the closer. Now, I know they got the guy Weaver, the ex-Yankee too, who might wind up being the closer if Williams craps out. But that, to me, is the big Achilles heel this team has, is the bullpen. I think the rotation is going to be better. Yeah, with Peralta and McClain. I know McClain got hit a little bit by Italy the other day, but I don't really care. If he's going to get hit, let him get hit in the WBC. So you're going to have those two guys at the top of the rotation. Maybe one of the other guys comes back, Manaea, Peterson, Senga. So I think the rotation will be improved. They're going to hit, even with the loss of Pete. You still got Soto. You still got Lindor. You got Bichette. You got Polanco. He should be doing something. Maybe you get something out of Robert. So I think they're still going to be okay offensively. Vientos, Beatty, Alvarez. Hopefully they give you something. I think they'll still be okay offensively. My biggest concern is the bullpen. It really is.
This one is from Thomas, who says, Joe, Mets win 100 or Jets win 10. What's more likely?
Wow.
I think it's the Mets, personally.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't think either thing is going to happen. But I guess the Mets winning 100. I guess if everything really broke right for the Mets, they could be a real high 90-something win team if everything broke right.
Yep, I agree. Mike says, meant more as the Rodgers experiment failed, not Rodgers. AG inherited a mentally weak team that only compounded the failure of a first-time head coach.
Yeah, no, they were. I mean, but let's be real. The biggest mistake the Jets made last year, all right, forget that they dumped Rodgers, was bringing in Justin Fields. He killed him. He stunk. And I heard somebody try to say that Justin Fields has a better upside than Geno. Justin Fields can't even throw the football. Justin Fields makes Geno look like he's Brady. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not even close.
The owner said Fields can't complete a pass. The owner said that.
Right. You got to be kidding me. I mean, come on. Because he's younger? I mean, who's had more success in this league, Geno Smith or or Justin Fields. It's not even close.
I think Salah, who you and I know well, was on the Fields is better than Gino take the other day.
Well, that's, I didn't want to say his name.
Okay, so that's who we were talking about. Got it.
It kills me about Sal. He's not even a Jet fan. What do you really care? Give me a break. Give me. I know he's got to say something, but give me a break.
Bag says, Joe, what if the game has passed right by, then what?
I'm not really worried about that. He's going to look, to me, he's good to be developing the quarterback. And don't you feel better about him calling the plays than Tyler Ekstrom? I mean, is it even debatable? Come on.
This one is from Hakeem, who says, and Hakeem, $10 super chat, 2 raffle tickets. Thank you. In 2027, hire Alex Smith as the head coach, then draft Arch Manning / John Mateer as quarterback. Smith, perfect head coach. Lastly, why does Lindor have so much power over the Met organization? You can't hire Alex Smith. He's never coached at any level. If you're going to hire the offensive guy,
I'm all for
for sure. But you got to hire either someone who's been an experienced head coach like Tomlin or McDermott, so on and so forth, or you got to hire someone who's like the offensive guy to help mold and develop the quarterback. We need to stop hiring first-time defensive guys.
He's right about, by the way, Lindor. Lindor has a lot of power in that organization. Why, I don't know. Look, I have my issues, non-baseball related, and I don't want to get into it with Lindor, okay? But as far as him on the field, look, I'll say this, and I didn't want Lindor to begin with. I'll say that. I didn't like trading those 2 young guys, Rosario and Jimenez, for him. I wasn't crazy about it. And he didn't have a great first year. He had some issues with the fans. He got involved when they had, what's his name, Javi Baez here, and he was giving the thumbs down to the fans and all. And, they paid him all this $360 million, whatever they gave him, $340 million. So I was down on it. But he's become an all-time great Met. I mean, he's the greatest short. Look, in all due respect to Bud Harrelson and Jose Reyes, he's the best shortstop we've ever had. He plays 160 games a year, and he's got a lot of big hits for this team, certainly 2 years ago. So I like Lindor a lot as a player. But it does seem like he has a lot of power. And look, we've heard a lot of rumors that he had issues with Soto last year in the locker room. He had issues with Nimmo last year in the locker room. The situation, with his wife and all of that. But, I mean, so I think that Lindor has a lot of power with the Mets. And why? I don't know. You'd have to ask Steve Cohen that. But he has become one of the great Mets of all time. I mean, I have to say that.
What were your thoughts on them not naming a captain? All of a sudden, Steve Cohen comes out and says, I never wanted a captain, which feels like a bunch of nonsense.
I don't know why that's a big deal. I don't know why that. I think it goes back to, maybe because Lindor would be the, as far as I'm concerned, would be the natural guy to be the captain. And maybe he wants to lay off that for the reasons that, that question the caller asked. Why does he have so much power seemingly with the organization? And maybe Cohen senses that and wants to get away from that aspect of it. Maybe.
Neil checks in. Neil, an OG Jet fan like you, Joe. He says, Joe, I wanted to trade for Mac Jones because he's in year 5 and he's improved every year. Would you be happy with him for $3 million in exchange for the 44th pick? That'd be the second round pick.
No, I would not. I'm not giving up a second round pick for Mac Jones. Absolutely not.
That's what I said to them because I don't believe in Mac Jones without Kyle Shanahan. I don't
want Mac Jones. He hates the Jets anyway. He hates them. Going back to his New England days. No. Because we'd be bringing him in like he's going to be our franchise quarterback. No, absolutely not.
Lou B checks in. Any chance we won't get all 1 p.m. games again? I mean, they might have a nationally. They're going to have at least one.
They're forced to have. They have to have at least a Thursday night game, right?
Yeah.
And
last year they had an international game. They played in London. They could go to London, I guess, or a different spot again this year potentially.
Do we know they're not going to overseas? Are they this year?
No, they were the home game for the overseas game, so we knew that they were going, but it's not on the schedule as of now. Right. If they're going to get an international game, the national televised game, they could put like a division game in prime time. They early in the year, I could see they put Jets Dolphins on Monday Night Football early in the season last year.
Right. No, I hope they're all 1 o'clock games.
That's the only good part about the Jets being awful. You get the 1 o'clock games.
Right. Or if it's on the West Coast, a 4 o'clock game. That's it. I hate the night games. You know how I feel about them. Can't stand them.
I think when you look at the schedule, Joe, I think there's a good chance they open in Nashville against Salah week 1.
Oh, I could see that. Oh, yeah. Yep. You know what, bro? 100% right. 100. I could certainly see that happen. No
They
doubt.
did that with, Rodgers versus the Jets this
Yeah,
past
yeah,
year. The
Pittsburgh,
Jets,
yeah.
Darnold versus Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
A couple of years back before that, I definitely could see that. They also play Mike LaFleur, who's now the head coach of the Cardinals, and Brian Costello, who you and I know well. His theory is they're going to play in Buffalo in their new stadium week 1, give the Bills a quote unquote easy win. The first ever Jets Bills game in the old Ralph Wilson was there, and then the Jets closed out the stadium. So he thinks Jets Bills week 1 is going to be the opener.
Sense. It'd be like a homecoming game for Buffalo. Yes, I
Brutal. All right, last one for you. You brought up the Knicks before. How are we feeling about this team? You got about a month before the playoffs. Are you confident in this Knicks squad?
I'll say what I've been saying really all year about the Knicks, and I'll continue to say it. Okay, the regular season is basically a glorified exhibition. When you're a team that is going to be a legitimate playoff team that from day one you're going to be, which the Knicks are, that's pretty much what the regular season is. Look, they're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the East. They're going to have home court in the first round, and they're going to win the first round. Play Philadelphia, Toronto. I don't know who they're going to play. Somebody like that in the first round, and they'll win. And I feel confident they'll win. After that, who knows? After that, here's what we know. Indiana will not be in the playoffs this year. So that's a good thing because Indiana's been their nemesis for years, and he beat them the last 2 years and knocked them out the last 2 years. Boston and Detroit. The Knicks are going to probably have to beat both of those 2 teams without the home court advantage to get to the finals. Now, they beat them last year, okay? And they won on the road. Remember, they won 3 games in Detroit. They won 2 games in Boston. So I don't really put a lot of stock in the home court advantage anymore, like I was at one time. They've lost a lot of brutal playoff games at home over the years, including last year, right? Including 2 years ago. Game 7 at home 2 years ago. So that's what it comes down to, bro. Now, they beat both of them last year. It's going to be more difficult to beat them this year. I think Boston is the bigger threat, especially that Tatum is back. They've already won a championship a couple years ago. They're going to have a big chip on their shoulder to want to stick it to the Knicks because the Knicks beat them last year. And even though it wasn't the Knicks' fault, Tatum got hurt. Tatum got hurt in that series. As far as the Pistons are concerned, I know they destroyed the Knicks 3 times so far in the regular season. But one thing about the Pistons, they will go into the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the East and as a big favorite in the East, okay, one of the favorites in the East with a lot of pressure on them now. They'll have expectations that they didn't have in the past. So it's going to come down to that. Can the Knicks beat Boston and Detroit? And we'll see. Personally, if you think the Knicks are winning the title, they haven't won one since 1973. Why would I think they're winning it now?
If you believe in due, they're due.
Look, bro. The teams I root for, they're all beyond due, okay? So due doesn't work, okay? Do. The Jets haven't won since 1968. The Knicks haven't won since 1973. The Mets haven't won since 1986. The Rangers haven't won since 1994. So they're all due. What does due mean? Nothing. Due means another year of pain.
And that's why the podcast is called Oh, the Pain. So everyone go listen, watch it on YouTube. Joe will be on the Fan 5 to 9 on Saturday.
That's it, bro. We got to get you on, bro. I know you're a busy dude.
I don't know if Ryan Hurley wants me on because I'm at ESPN New York. But I love Ryan. He hired me. He gave me my start.
I don't think Ryan Hurley would care about you coming on with me. Maybe they would care about you coming on with me.
Yeah.
I don't think our side cares. I think your side would be the one. You know,
I do it in a second. It's
I know. No, come on. You know that.
Joe, you're the man. Appreciate you hopping on. If the Jets do anything else crazy, I'll reach out. We'll get you out before the draft and see where everything's at.
You got it, bro. All the love. God bless America. You got it.
Hey, here's the deal. Just got no chance unless you click on that like button. And you got to make sure you subscribe to the Jake Asman Show. You don't, you can get the out. Now let's go, Asmaniacs. We're built for this shit.